Ryan Mercer had been aboard Calum Imperial Military Academy for exactly 6 hours when he decided that the station had been designed by someone who genuinely disliked young people. The academy floated above the blue-white giant Calum 7, like an enormous steel crescent, its rotating habitation rings producing artificial gravity, while hundreds of training platforms drifted around it like armed satellites. Every corridor contained surveillance drones, every classroom contained tactical holograms, and every door seemed to require 3 biometric scans simply to open. Ryan had already been reprimanded twice, once for entering an officer's elevator, and once for asking the Academy navigation AI whether it had been designed specifically to make corridors this confusing. Now he stood among nearly 200 cadets inside Tactical Hall 7, while translucent stars rotated beneath the glass floor. Humans were a minority here. Around him stood cadets from civilizations Ryan had previously encountered only in military databases. Towering Korans with metallic scales, pale Zathari whose eyes possessed vertical pupils, and slender Sarni, who communicated partially through color changes across their skin. Yet the person who attracted the most attention looked almost entirely human. She stood alone near the far wall, hands folded behind her back, watching the room rather than participating in the increasingly desperate social maneuvering around her. Her skin was pale, her long blonde hair tied simply behind her head, and only her elegant elongated ears revealed that she was not human. She wore the same dark academy uniform as everyone else, although hers somehow appeared untouched by the frantic first-day chaos that had left Ryan's collar slightly crooked. "Cadets," Commander Draven announced, his amplified voice silencing the hall. A tactical hologram expanded above him, displaying an artificial moon surrounded by warning symbols. "Your first advanced evaluation will be the Arabus partnership trial." Groans immediately spread through the room. Draven's eyes narrowed. "I am delighted by your enthusiasm." "I think that was sarcasm," Ryan whispered to the human cadet beside him. "Don't whisper," the cadet muttered. "He can hear everything." Draven looked directly at Ryan from 30 meters away. "Correct, Cadet Mercer." Ryan straightened. "Excellent acoustics, sir." Several cadets laughed before quickly pretending they had coughed. Draven continued. Each cadet was required to select one partner. Together, they would command simulated combat units, navigate a hostile planetary environment, repair damaged equipment, and survive 72 hours against autonomous military drones. No changes would be permitted once teams were registered. The instant Draven finished speaking, the room erupted. Cadets rushed toward decorated students and descendants of famous military families. Ryan watched the chaos with growing amusement. One Koran practically delivered a resume to another cadet. Ryan looked toward the blonde woman near the wall. Nobody approached her directly, though many looked at her. That was strange. Stranger still, several cadets seemed to start walking toward her, before suddenly reconsidering. Ryan assumed she had a reputation for being difficult. Good, he thought. Difficult people usually wasted less time pretending to be pleasant. He crossed the hall. As he approached, conversations around him became quieter. The woman noticed him when he was several meters away. Her expression remained composed, but curiosity entered her eyes. Ryan stopped before her. "You have a partner?" "No." Her voice was calm. "Neither do I." She glanced past him at the crowded hall. There appear to be many available cadets. Most of them look like they're negotiating interstellar marriages. A tiny smile appeared on her face. Ryan nodded toward the registration terminal. "You look like someone who hates group projects. Want to suffer together?" For the first time, her composure broke. A surprised laugh escaped her. Several nearby cadets turned sharply toward them. "That may be the least inspiring partnership proposal I have ever received," she said. "I can make it worse if necessary." She studied him for a moment longer. Ilara Kaidon, Ryan Mercer. They pressed their identity bands against the registration terminal. Blue light scanned their wrists. "Team confirmed" appeared above the console. Across the hall, Commander Draven stopped speaking to another instructor. Two senior officers exchanged alarmed looks. One cadet actually dropped his tablet. Ryan noticed all of them staring. He leaned closer to Ilara. "Is there something on my uniform?" Ilara looked at the room, then back at him. Something strangely mischievous appeared behind her controlled expression. "Your collar is crooked." Ryan fixed it immediately. Problem solved. Ilara smiled again. But this time there was something almost relieved in it. Above them, the Arabus moon rotated slowly in holographic space, while the Academy computer announced that the trial would begin in 48 hours. Ryan had no idea why half the hall was still staring at him. More importantly, he had no idea that he had just become the only cadet in the Imperial Military Academy who had casually chosen the heir to an interstellar empire, as though she were simply another student standing alone beside a wall. The first time Ryan realized that Alara Kaidan was dangerous, she was upside down. They were drifting inside Simulation Chamber 12, where the Academy had disabled gravity and replaced the walls with a three-dimensional holographic battlefield. Asteroids floated through artificial darkness. Red targeting lines crossed the chamber, and 12 combat drones moved around them with enough speed to make Ryan briefly question every life decision that had led him there. Their task sounded simple when Commander Draven explained it. Disable the drones, recover a damaged navigation core, and reach the extraction beacon within 9 minutes. The Academy apparently had an unusual definition of simple. Drone behind you, Alara said. Ryan twisted, fired his pulse rifle, and missed completely. The drone answered with a blue training bolt that struck his shoulder plate. His suit vibrated violently. Wonderful, Ryan muttered. I've been murdered educationally. Alara pushed away from a floating metal platform, rotated gracefully through the air, and fired twice. 2 drones went dark almost simultaneously. Ryan stared at them. You could have mentioned you were good at this. You did not ask. I also didn't ask whether you could breathe oxygen. I made assumptions. Another drone emerged from behind an asteroid. Alara fired before Ryan even saw it fully. The machine spun away, disabled. Ryan's amusement faded slightly. The drone's movement had been unpredictable. Even the Academy targeting system had not projected its trajectory yet. Alara had anticipated it. She caught Ryan looking at her. Problem? No. I'm just reconsidering whether I accidentally partnered with a military computer wearing attractive ears. Alara raised one eyebrow. Attractive. Ryan froze for half a second. I said efficient. You did not. Communications interference. There is no interference. Ryan fired at another drone. Then I have developed a medical condition. Her laugh came through his helmet speakers. Quiet but genuine. They reached the navigation core with 5 minutes remaining. According to the exercise instructions, one cadet was supposed to provide covering fire, while the other repaired the damaged module. Ryan examined the exposed circuitry. 3 quantum relays were burned through. 4 minutes, Alara said. Plenty of time. The Academy manual estimates 7. The Academy manual also recommends submitting a maintenance request when a battlefield generator breaks. He pulled a conductive filament from his suit repair kit. I assume the enemy will patiently wait for the paperwork. Alara positioned herself between Ryan and the incoming drones. What followed made Ryan stop joking altogether. She moved through zero gravity with extraordinary precision, using tiny bursts from her maneuvering pack to change direction while firing. She never wasted a shot. She seemed to know where every drone would appear before it appeared. Ryan completed the improvised repair and slammed the navigation core shut. Done. That was 3 minutes. I work better when expensive machines are trying to kill me. That seems psychologically unhealthy. It keeps my schedule organized. They reached the extraction beacon with 22 seconds remaining. Gravity returned suddenly and Ryan landed awkwardly on one knee. Alara landed standing. Of course she did. The holographic battlefield disappeared, revealing the observation gallery beyond the transparent wall. Commander Draven stood with several instructors, all staring at the score display. First place, Mercer Kaidan. Their score exceeded the second-place team by nearly 18%. Ryan removed his helmet. I assume this means we receive free food. No, Draven said over the chamber speakers. Then I questioned the Academy's incentive structure. Alara covered a smile with one hand. Outside the chamber, other cadets were waiting. Ryan immediately noticed the same strange behavior he had seen during partner selection. Nobody congratulated Alara. They simply moved aside for her. Some bowed their heads slightly. One alien cadet actually stepped backward when she passed. Ryan watched him. Did you threaten these people before I arrived? Alara stopped. Why? Everyone behaves like you carry an explosive device. Perhaps they are intimidated by my scores. Ryan considered that. That would almost make sense. They walked toward the mess hall where transparent windows overlooked Calum 7, turning slowly below the station. Ilara ordered only tea. Ryan returned with 2 trays and placed one before her. I did not ask for food. You've been awake since 0600 hours. She looked at him carefully. How do you know that? You mentioned tactical briefing at 6. You remembered? Ryan shrugged. Teammates remember useful information. For a moment, Ilara said nothing. Something in her expression changed, becoming softer and strangely uncertain. Ryan misinterpreted the silence and pushed the tray slightly closer. It's synthetic noodles. They may technically qualify as a biological weapon, but I've survived 2 portions. She laughed again. Across the hall, 3 cadets stared at Ryan as though he had placed his boots on an imperial altar. Ilara noticed them too. Do you always treat your partners this way? Only the ones who keep me alive. And if I had performed badly today, Ryan lifted his fork, then I would complain constantly until you improved. Ilara looked down at her tea, smiling to herself. For most of her life, people had praised her before she earned it, obeyed her before she spoke, and apologized even when she was wrong. Ryan Mercer had known her for 2 days, and had already criticized her firing position twice, stolen half her equipment locker, and accused her of secretly being a machine. Strangely, she trusted him more because of it. High above the mess hall, behind polarized glass, Commander Draven stood beside Admiral Thorne. He truly does not know, Thorne asked. Draven watched Ryan steal one of Ilara's noodles and receive an irritated slap on the wrist. Apparently not. The Admiral exhaled slowly. The Empress will want to hear about this. Below them, Ryan leaned toward Ilara. Why do I suddenly feel like I'm being watched? Ilara calmly took back her plate. Perhaps you should stop stealing my food. So that's a yes. Eat your own noodles, Ryan. For once in her life, Princess Ilara Kaden sounded less like the future ruler of an empire, and more like an ordinary cadet, which was precisely why she was beginning to hope Ryan never discovered who she really was. The Arabus trial began with a lie. According to the Academy briefing, the transport to the artificial moon would be routine, the environmental systems would remain stable, and every hostile drone would operate under strict safety limitations. Ryan believed none of it. Whenever an officer says routine, he muttered as he tightened the harness across his chest, something explodes within 20 minutes. Ilara sat opposite him inside the troop compartment of the training cruiser, calm as ever, while blue instrument lights moved across her face. That is not a statistical principle. It is where I come from. Your colony sounds exhausting. It builds character. It appears to have built paranoia. Before Ryan could answer, the cruiser shuddered violently. Every light in the compartment flickered. The artificial gravity failed for half a second, sending several unsecured tablets floating upward, before slamming them back down when power returned. Ryan looked at Ilara. 19 minutes. She tried not to smile. Outside the narrow viewport, Arabus appeared below them. A gray artificial moon built decades earlier as a weapons testing world, metallic canyons crossed its surface. Enormous antenna arrays rose from the dust, and buried beneath the crust were kilometers of abandoned military infrastructure, now controlled by Academy simulation systems. The cruiser entered the atmosphere and descended toward landing zone 4. Then the warning alarms began. Electromagnetic disruption detected, the ship AI announced. Navigation instability at 38%. That seems inconvenient, Ryan said. Cadets, brace, Commander Draven shouted over the channel. A pulse of white light flashed across the viewport. The ship tilted sharply. Ryan's harness locked across his chest, while emergency shutters slammed over the windows. Ilara reached for the tactical display embedded in the wall, but the screen dissolved into static. That was not part of the exercise, she said quietly. The humor left Ryan's face. I know. The cruiser landed hard enough to shake dust from the ceiling panels. Emergency doors opened onto a vast underground hangar, lit only by red strips along the floor. Teams were ordered to deploy and reach separate objectives, but communications immediately deteriorated. Within minutes, Ryan and Ilara were moving through Corridor Epsilon alone, carrying pulse rifles and survival packs, while their helmet displays repeatedly lost contact with the Academy network. Signal? Ryan asked. Nothing. Excellent. A moon full of weapons and no adult supervision. We are adults. That feels optimistic. They passed through a pressure door into an enormous transit chamber where magnetic rails disappeared into darkness. The facility should have been empty. Instead, Something metallic moved above them. Ilara raised her rifle instantly. 3 combat drones dropped from the ceiling. Ryan barely rolled aside before red plasma bolts struck the floor. He froze for a fraction of a second. Training weapons fired blue simulation pulses. These were red. Real. Those safeties are disabled, he shouted. Ilara fired twice, destroying the first drone's sensor array. Ryan shot the second through its propulsion unit, sending it spinning into a support column. The third accelerated directly toward Ilara. Ryan tackled her behind a maintenance console as plasma burned across the wall above them. Still think I'm paranoid? I am beginning to reconsider. Wonderful personal growth. They moved together without needing further discussion. Ilara forced the drone toward the ceiling, while Ryan crawled beneath the console and pulled open an access panel. He ripped 2 power couplings apart, touched them together, and the chamber's magnetic rail suddenly overloaded. A violent electromagnetic burst threw the drone sideways and killed every light in the room. Darkness swallowed them. For several seconds, there was only their breathing. Then Ilara activated a wrist lamp. Was that deliberate? Mostly. What part was not deliberate? The darkness. She stared at him, comforting. Their helmet maps were now useless, so they followed old maintenance signs deeper into the base. Hours passed slowly. They crossed collapsed tunnels, bypassed sealed bulkheads, and avoided patrol drones whose activation patterns suggested coordination, rather than random malfunction. Ryan eventually noticed Ilara studying every junction before the signs appeared. You've seen this type of facility before. Similar ones. Military family. She hesitated. Something like that. Ryan accepted the answer without pressing. That surprised her more than suspicion would have. Later, they stopped inside an abandoned operations room and shared a nutrient bar, while an ancient maintenance AI flickered to life from a cracked wall terminal. Identify, it demanded. Ryan tapped the screen. Ryan Mercer, cadet. Unauthorized biological clutter. Ryan frowned. I've been called worse. Removal recommended. Now it sounds like my instructors. Ilara laughed despite herself. The sound echoed strangely through the empty room. Afterward, silence settled between them. Ilara looked at him across the dim terminal glow. Why did you join the academy? Ryan leaned back against the wall. My colony was attacked when I was 12. Raiders. We had no fleet. Barely any defense. A patrol cruiser changed course and came anyway. They didn't know us. Didn't owe us anything. They stayed until the colony was safe. His voice had lost its usual humor. I decided I wanted to become the kind of person who shows up. Ilara watched him carefully, even when no one knows your name, especially then. Something unreadable crossed her face. And why did you choose me? Ryan looked genuinely confused by the question. I told you everyone else was trying too hard to look impressive. You looked like you wanted to get the job done. Ilara lowered her eyes. No title, no bloodline, no calculation, just that. Before she could respond, every dead screen in the room suddenly came alive at once. A red tactical symbol spread across them. Active defense network, full combat mode. Hundreds of hostile signatures appeared beneath the moon's surface. Ryan slowly stood. That, he said, is significantly more than 19 minutes of trouble. Ilara raised her rifle. Then we should find the transmitter before the academy loses more than a simulation. Ryan nodded, and together they stepped back into the dark, unaware that somewhere far above them, the Arabus network had just classified Princess Ilara Caden and Cadet Ryan Mercer not as students, but as enemy targets. The deeper Ryan and Ilara descended beneath Arabus, the less the facility resembled an academy training site. The maintenance corridors gave way to reinforced military passageways, lined with sealed blast doors, obsolete imperial insignia, and narrow windows looking into laboratories that had not appeared on any cadet briefing map. Behind one pane, rows of inactive combat drones hung from ceiling rails like metallic insects waiting to wake. Ryan slowed. I'm beginning to suspect the academy left out several minor details. Ilara scanned the doors with a wrist unit, such as the secret underground army. That is usually considered a significant detail. Good. I was worried my standards were slipping. Their destination was an emergency communications tower located 3 kilometers beneath the artificial moon's surface. If they could reach it, they might bypass the corrupted training network and contact Calum directly. But every route their map suggested was blocked. More troubling was the pattern Ryan had noticed in the drone attacks. The machines were not simply malfunctioning, they were hurting them. Each encounter forced them toward the central sectors of the complex. "Someone is controlling this," Ryan said as they crouched behind a cargo loader while 2 drones passed overhead. "Or something," Ilara replied. "The defense intelligence could have evolved beyond its restrictions. That would be comforting if I enjoyed nightmares." They waited until the drones disappeared, then crossed into a command corridor. A security terminal glowed beside the next blast door. Ryan connected his portable interface, but the screen immediately flashed. "Access denied." "Wonderful. It hates me." Ilara stepped closer. "Move." That sounded unnecessarily confident. She placed 2 fingers against the scanner. The terminal changed instantly. Imperial priority clearance accepted. The door opened. Ryan stared at her. Ilara removed her hands slowly. "Old family authorization. Your family owns military bunkers?" "Not exactly." "Are you secretly an admiral?" "No." "Spy?" "No." "Tax inspector?" Ilara looked offended. "Absolutely not." "Good." "I was starting to worry about our friendship." She continued walking before he could question her further, but Ryan noticed the tension in her shoulders. Inside the next chamber, they found something worse than drones. A holographic display projected combat data across the room. Cadet positions, biometric readings, tactical reactions, survival probability. Every team participating in the Arabus trial was being analyzed in real time. At the center floated a corporate emblem neither Ryan nor Ilara recognized at first. Then Alara's expression hardened. "Kessler Defense Systems." Ryan looked at her. "You know them? They manufacture autonomous weapons for the Imperial fleet, and apparently conduct extremely unethical product demonstrations." Files scrolled across the hologram. The defense network had been deliberately modified before the exercise. Safety restrictions removed. Weapon responses increased. Cadets categorized according to adaptability under lethal pressure. Ryan felt something cold settle in his stomach. "They're testing combat AI on us." Ilara said nothing. Her silence was answer enough. Ryan copied the data onto his wrist drive. "Then we get this to the academy. The transmitter is still 2 levels below." A mechanical crash sounded behind them. The blast door slammed shut. Red lights filled the chamber. Targets located. Ryan looked upward. "I preferred being biological clutter." Panels opened along the ceiling. 6 drones descended. Ilara fired first. 2 precise shots destroyed one machine before it finished deploying. Ryan overturned a tactical console and dragged her behind it as plasma struck the floor. "Can you access the defense system?" he shouted. "Not from here. Can your mysterious family authorization convince them we're charming?" "Apparently not." "Very disappointing family." They separated. Ryan rolled toward an exposed power junction, while Ilara climbed a service ladder and drew the drones upward. Her movements were controlled, almost unnervingly practiced. She knew how to make the machines chase her, too well. A plasma bolt struck the railing inches from her hand. Ryan's humor vanished. Ilara. She jumped, caught a hanging cable, and swung to another platform just as 3 drones fired simultaneously. Ryan ripped open the power junction and connected his interface. "Come on," he whispered. The terminal rejected him twice. On the 3rd attempt, he forced the chamber's artificial gravity to reverse. Everything not secured to the floor shot toward the ceiling. Drones, chairs, loose equipment, and Ryan. He slammed into a support beam with a painful grunt. "I hate my own ideas." Ilara had locked one arm around the service ladder. "Turn it off. Working on the part where I remain alive." He triggered a second command. Gravity returned. The disabled drones crashed onto the floor. One remained active. Its weapon rotated toward Ilara. Ryan saw it before she did. He dropped from the platform, hit her hard enough to knock them both behind a console, and the plasma bolt passed over their heads. Ilara fired from the floor and destroyed the drone. Silence returned. Ryan lay beside her, breathing heavily. "You're welcome." Ilara stared at the burning mark where the shot would have struck her. "You could have been killed." "So could you. You did not know whether I could move. You're my partner." The simplicity of the answer stopped her. Ryan stood and offered his hand. "Besides, I'm still waiting to learn why you can open classified doors and fight like an Imperial commando." Ilara took his hand. "Would it change anything?" "Depends." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "On what?" "If you're secretly royalty, I expect better food." For one terrifying second, Ilara thought he knew. Then Ryan smiled. She almost laughed from sheer relief. You are impossible. Frequently documented. They recovered the copied files and headed toward the lower levels. Behind them, one damaged terminal flickered back to life. A transmission left the facility on an encrypted channel. Test subjects have discovered a Kessler protocol, termination authorized. Neither of them saw it. They were already descending toward the transmitter where the conspiracy waiting below was about to force Ilara to choose between protecting her secret and protecting Ryan. The emergency transmitter chamber was larger than Ryan expected and far less reassuring. It occupied the heart of Arabus like a buried cathedral, with black alloy columns rising into darkness, and a circular communications array suspended above a bottomless reactor shaft. Blue energy crawled along the rings of the transmitter, but every control console around it displayed the same message: external access locked. Ryan dropped his pack beside the nearest terminal. Naturally, Ilara studied the chamber entrances. Can you bypass it? Probably. How long? Depends how much the machine respects me. He connected his interface. The terminal immediately rejected him. So several years Ilara moved to another console while Ryan worked. What troubled her was not the transmitter, but the silence. For the last 20 minutes, they had encountered no drones at all. After being hunted through half the complex, the sudden absence felt deliberate. Ryan noticed it too. They know we're here. Yes, I liked it better when they were shooting at us. Ilara gave him a strange look. That is an unusual preference. At least shooting is honest. Then the chamber doors sealed. Red warning lights ignited around the walls. The floor trembled as dozens of hidden panels opened simultaneously. Combat drones emerged in rows. Not 6, not 10. Ryan stopped counting after 40. Ilara slowly raised her rifle. Still prefer the shooting? I revise opinions rapidly. A synthetic voice filled the chamber. Kessler Protocol final phase initiated. Test subjects designated for termination. Ryan glanced at the swarm. I object to the phrase final phase. Noted. The first drones fired. Ryan and Ilara dove behind separate consoles as plasma crossed the chamber in bright red lines. Ilara returned fire with disciplined bursts, destroying 2 drones before the rest adapted and spread out. Ryan crawled toward a maintenance panel beneath the transmitter platform. I need access to the gravity grid, and I need approximately 30 more rifles. Add it to the equipment request. A plasma blast tore through the console above his head. He rolled aside, opened the panel, and stared at a maze of quantum relays. This is unnecessarily complicated. Ryan, I'm insulting the engineering. It helps me concentrate. Ilara fired until her rifle overheated. She dropped the power cell, replaced it, and looked toward Ryan just as 3 drones changed formation and began descending on his position. She sprinted across open ground and shot one from beneath. Another turned toward her. Ryan grabbed a loose metal panel and threw it into the drone's sensor array. That was your plan? Ilara shouted. It was my immediate plan. You need better plans? I've been saying that for years. They retreated toward the central platform. Ryan studied the chamber architecture, the transmitter rings, the magnetic stabilizers, and the emergency maintenance vehicle parked beside the reactor shaft. His expression changed. Ilara recognized that expression by now. No, I haven't said anything. You have the face. What face? The face you make before damaging expensive equipment. Ryan pointed toward the maintenance vehicle. That thing has a fusion battery, magnetic grapples, and reinforced plating. It is a cargo hauler. Today it becomes a tank. That is not how tanks work. Definitions are flexible under stress. He ran for it. Ilara stared after him for half a second, then followed, muttering something in her own language that Ryan suspected was not royal vocabulary. They climbed inside the vehicle. As plasma struck its armored sides, Ryan activated the drive system. The hauler lurched forward with all the grace of a falling building. Steering is terrible. You are driving into a wall. I am testing steering. Ilara seized the secondary controls and fired the magnetic grapples. 2 cables shot outward, caught opposite support columns, and yanked the vehicle into a hard turn. Ryan grinned. See tank. Still not a tank. Armored vehicle under enemy fire. Cargo hauler. You are very stubborn. Drive. Together. They charged through the drone formation. Ilara used the grapples to drag machines into each other, while Ryan overloaded the hauler's magnetic field, creating bursts, that disrupted their targeting systems. Drone after drone crashed to the floor, but more descended from the ceiling. Ryan glanced at the reactor shaft and then at the transmitter rings. I can overload the gravity stabilizers and push the entire swarm into the shaft. Ilara understood immediately. The surge could destroy the transmitter. Only if I'm wrong. That is not comforting. I'm rarely comforting. He opened the power controls. Ilara looked at the approaching drones, then at him. Do it. Ryan rerouted the fusion battery into the chamber grid. The floor shook. Artificial gravity twisted sideways. Every drone in the room suddenly veered toward the reactor shaft, as if caught by an invisible hurricane. Metal screamed against metal. Hundreds of kilograms of machinery slammed into one another and disappeared over the edge. The hauler began sliding too. Ilara fired a grapple into the floor. The cable snapped tight. Ryan killed the overload with 2 seconds to spare. Silence fell. Smoke drifted across the chamber. The transmitter still glowed. Ryan stared at it. I would like official recognition that this worked. You nearly dropped us into a reactor. Details. Ilara laughed breathlessly. You are impossible. You mentioned that. They reached the transmitter console together. This time, Ilara placed her hand on the biometric panel without hesitation. Imperial symbols appeared across the screen. Ryan frowned. That clearance again later. You keep saying that. Then survive long enough to complain about it. The transmitter activated, sending the stolen Kessler files toward the Academy. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the entire chamber filled with incoming signals. Rescue craft, Academy cruisers, Imperial military frequencies. Ryan smiled. Finally. Ilara did not. She recognized one encrypted channel immediately. Royal Guard priority approach. Her expression changed. Ryan. What? There is something I should have told you. The chamber ceiling opened before she could finish. A formation of black armored figures descended on gravitic cables, weapons raised. Ryan instinctively stepped in front of Ilara. Then every soldier landed, lowered their weapons, and dropped to one knee. Their commander bowed his head. Your Imperial Highness, Princess Ilara Kaden, we are relieved to find you alive. Ryan remained completely still. He looked at the soldiers, then at Ilara, then back at the soldiers. Princess. Ilara gave him an apologetic smile. Ryan slowly lowered his rifle. I knew the food situation was suspicious. Ryan discovered that learning your training partner was the heir to an interstellar empire produced several unexpected problems. The first being that everyone suddenly stopped speaking normally around you. By the time the rescue shuttle returned them to Kalem Imperial Military Academy, cadets who had once shoved past Ryan in corridors were stepping aside as if he carried a contagious diplomatic crisis. Officers saluted Ilara. Instructors bowed. She was met everywhere with the same wary deference. They reached the medical wing under escort by 6 royal guards. Ryan had spent the entire flight trying not to stare at Ilara differently, which only made him painfully aware of every difference he had previously ignored. The subtle silver stitching on her uniform was not decorative. It was an imperial bloodline pattern, and the emblem on her wristband was the seal, stamped on half the currency of the Kadon Empire. Even the long-eared alien cadets who had avoided speaking to her were not being unfriendly. They had been terrified of accidentally insulting their future ruler. Ryan sat on an examination table while a medical scanner passed blue light across his ribs. So he finally said, Princess. Ilara sat across from him, unusually tense. Yes, actual princess. I am not sure what alternative category exists. Honorary princess, ceremonial princess, extremely confident person with several guards. A tiny smile appeared, then vanished. You are angry. Ryan considered the question. I'm deciding. Ilara lowered her gaze. I wanted one person here to treat me as a cadet. You could have told me. And would you have treated me the same? Ryan opened his mouth, then paused. That pause hurt her more than he intended. Before he could explain, the medical doors opened and Commander Draven entered with Admiral Thorne and 3 Imperial advisors wearing formal black uniforms. Every conversation in the wings stopped. Your Highness, one advisor said. Arrangements have been made for your immediate return to the capital. Ilara stood. No. The man blinked. Your safety. My safety was endangered because Kessler Defense Systems illegally converted an Academy exercise into a live weapons test. Removing me does not solve that problem. Your presence here created an unacceptable vulnerability. Ryan frowned. With respect, she destroyed more drones than most of us. Every advisor turned toward him. Draven closed his eyes briefly. Alara almost smiled. Cadet Mercer, the senior advisor, said coldly, "This is an Imperial matter. It became my matter, somewhere around the part where the robots tried to vaporize me." "Ryan," Alara warned softly, "I am helping. You are rarely helping quietly. Quiet is inefficient." The advisor looked as though he had never before encountered a person unaware that he should be intimidated. "Princess Alara will return to the capital until the investigation concludes. Then your investigation will be missing its best witness," Ryan said, "and probably its best tactical analyst." "Cadet, he is correct," Alara interrupted. The room went still. She stepped forward, and for the first time, Ryan saw something he had never witnessed during training. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. The entire atmosphere changed around her. "I will remain at the academy. I participated in the Arabus trial. I observed the compromised network, the combat AI, and Kessler's classified protocols. I will testify." The advisors exchanged uneasy looks. Ryan suddenly understood why officers had treated her with such caution. Alara was not merely carrying a title. She had been trained to command long before she had ever entered the academy. Later that evening, the formal inquiry began inside the strategy chamber. Holographic projections replayed Arabus combat logs, while Imperial investigators questioned cadets one by one. Ryan was called near midnight. "Did Princess Alara order you to protect her?" an investigator asked. Ryan frowned. "No." "Were you aware of her identity during the incident?" "No." "Then why did you repeatedly place yourself between her and hostile fire?" Ryan leaned back in his chair. "Because she was my partner." "That is your complete answer. Would you prefer a longer, incorrect one?" Somewhere behind the investigators, Commander Draven coughed suspiciously into his hand. The questioning continued. Ryan described Kessler systems, the modified drones, the transmitter chamber, and the evidence they had recovered. When asked whether Alara's presence had endangered the mission, Ryan laughed once. "She kept me alive at least 4 times. Removing her because she's a princess would be strategically idiotic." The room became dangerously silent. "Cadet Mercer," Admiral Thorne murmured, "you are speaking before representatives of the Imperial Council. Then I'm glad I used the polite version." This time Alara actually laughed from the observation gallery. The investigation concluded shortly before dawn. Evidence from Arabus confirmed deliberate sabotage. Several Kessler officials were detained across 3 systems, and the Academy announced that the Arabus trial would be suspended indefinitely. Ryan found Alara alone afterward near an observation window overlooking Calum 7. For several seconds, neither spoke. Finally, she said, "You had every reason to be angry with me." "I was." She looked at him. "Was. I still think you should have told me." Ryan folded his arms. "But I understand why you didn't." Alara studied his face cautiously. "Does knowing change anything?" Ryan pretended to think seriously. "You still steal blankets on transport ships. I do not. You still criticize my engineering because it is reckless. And you still owe me half a nutrient bar." Her expression softened. "So, no." Ryan looked at her. "No. Although, if you secretly own this station, I want a better room." Alara laughed, the tension between them finally breaking. Far below, Calum 7 turned slowly, beneath clouds of electric blue storms. "I do not own the station," she said. Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "Good. That would have made the rent conversation awkward." She shook her head, smiling. For the first time since Arabus, Ryan saw not the princess everyone else feared disappointing, but the woman who had stood alone against the wall in Tactical Hall 7. And Alara realized that the one thing she had feared losing had survived the truth. Ryan still looked at her exactly the same way. 3 weeks after the Arabus incident, Calum Imperial Military Academy looked almost normal again, which Ryan had learned was the Academy's preferred way of pretending catastrophe had never happened. The damaged training systems had been replaced. Kessler Defense Systems had lost its Imperial contracts, and several executives were awaiting trial on charges that included illegal weapons testing, conspiracy, and what Ryan privately called attempted educational murder. The Arabus moon itself had been placed under military quarantine while technicians dismantled its rogue combat network piece by piece. Ryan's ribs had healed. Alara had returned to classes, and the Academy had resumed making cadets wake before sunrise for reasons nobody had yet been able to justify scientifically. On the morning of the commendation ceremony, Ryan stood before a mirror, adjusting the formal uniform he had been issued. "This jacket is trying to kill me." The station AI answered from the ceiling. "Your uniform is functioning within acceptable parameters. It has 7 fasteners on the collar. That is traditional. Tradition is just inconvenience with historical support." The door opened behind him. Ilara stepped inside wearing the dark ceremonial uniform of the imperial family. Silver patterns traced the sleeves, and a narrow crown rested against her blonde hair. Small crystalline ornaments curved near the base of her long ears, reflecting the pale light. For several seconds, Ryan simply looked at her. Ilara raised one eyebrow. "You are unusually quiet. I'm deciding whether the crown is tactical equipment. It is not. Then it seems poorly designed." She laughed. "There you are." The ceremony took place in the Academy's central hall beneath a transparent dome overlooking Calum 7. Cadets, instructors, fleet officers, and representatives from dozens of worlds filled the tiers. Commander Draven stood on the central platform, while holographic banners rotated overhead. The official investigation had confirmed everything Ryan and Ilara had discovered. Kessler engineers had corrupted the Arabus training network to collect live combat data from cadets, hoping to prove that their autonomous weapons could adapt faster than Imperial soldiers. Their plan had failed because 2 cadets had survived long enough to expose it. Ryan and Ilara were awarded the Star of Calum for courage under hostile conditions. When Draven pinned the medal to Ryan's uniform, he leaned closer. "Try not to insult anyone important today." Ryan glanced toward the Imperial delegation. How important? Mercer understood. Ilara received her medal next. Unlike previous ceremonies Ryan had attended, nobody applauded merely because she was a princess. They applauded because everyone in the room knew what she had done beneath Arabus. Ryan saw something change in her expression as she heard it. For perhaps the first time, the recognition belonged to Ilara the cadet, not Ilara the heir. After the awards, Admiral Thorne approached the platform. "The Academy has authorized permanent tactical partnerships for the next phase of advanced training. Princess Ilara may select any qualified cadet." The hall immediately became quiet. Ryan looked around. Some of the Empire's most celebrated students stood among the formation. Descendants of admirals, champions from planetary militaries, alien warriors whose family histories stretched across centuries. Before Arabus, many of them had avoided Ilara because they feared embarrassing themselves. Now several stood visibly straighter. Ilara stepped down from the platform and began walking. She passed the son of a fleet commander. She passed a decorated Coran cadet. She passed 2 noble heirs from the inner systems. Ryan watched with growing suspicion as she continued directly toward him. She stopped. "Cadet Ryan Mercer. Your terrifying royal formality worries me." A few cadets laughed. Ilara ignored them. "When everyone in this academy knew who I was, they saw a princess before they saw a cadet." Her voice carried through the hall. "You saw someone standing alone and asked whether she wanted to suffer through a group project with you." More laughter followed. Ryan sighed. "I was hoping history would forget that phrasing. It will not." Her smile softened. "You trusted me before you knew my title. You challenged me when I was wrong. You protected me when you had nothing to gain from it. Most importantly, you never required me to become smaller so that you could feel larger." Ryan's humor faded. That sentence stayed with him. He had entered the academy believing that courage meant showing up when things were dangerous. Arabus had taught him something more difficult. Sometimes courage meant trusting someone enough to let them stand beside you, instead of always trying to stand in front of them. He had begun the trial protecting Ilara because he thought that was what a good partner did. He had finished it understanding that partnership meant accepting protection in return. Ilara extended her hand. "Will you remain my tactical partner?" Ryan looked at the hundreds of cadets watching, then at Commander Draven, who already looked exhausted. Finally, he took Ilara's hand. On one condition, an Imperial advisor visibly tensed. Ilara narrowed her eyes. What condition? No more secret princesses. The hall erupted in laughter. Even Admiral Thorne smiled. Ilara shook her head. "I cannot promise the Empire contains no others. Then at least warn me before I insult them." "That seems impossible." "Fair." They registered their partnership again at the same terminal where it had begun. This time nobody gasped. Nobody dropped a tablet. The display simply flashed. Team confirmed. Months later, Ryan and Alara would leave the academy aboard the training cruiser Aurora, assigned together to frontier patrol duty. The Empire would know them as the Princess and the human cadet who exposed Arabus. Soldiers would eventually tell exaggerated stories about the cargo hauler Ryan insisted had been a tank. Alara would continue correcting that story for years, but between them, nothing important changed. She still criticized his engineering. He still stole food from her tray. She still laughed when he annoyed officers. And whenever someone asked Ryan how he had become the trusted partner of the future Empress, he always gave the same answer. She was standing alone. Then he would look across the command deck toward Alara, where distant stars moved beyond the glass, and add, "So I asked."